I'm Roger Bowie. This is music.net. This is my it's a rap series with Roger, and we've got Darryn Harkness. Hey Darryn, how you doing, mate?
Hey Roger, very nice to see you.
You look like you're in the sun.
I am in the sun. I'm out the back of my house with my cat and a beer and a joint. That's the way. Oh, feel good.
I forgot to get a beer.
Oh, there's plenty of time, isn't there? Have you got one in the fridge? Please help yourself.
Yeah, no, I'll do that later. Hey, look, we met at St Helier's Bay Pigeon Racing Club.
Great, it was a great night. It was a great night.
You're supporting the Great Fake, and that was a blast, wasn't it?
It was a real nice night. I really enjoyed that. It was the first time we'd done a little duo gig. You know, it was weird, but it was good.
Yeah. It was good. I also discovered that I actually published your piece that you did for Project Sunrise last year.
Oh, right. The Ra song I did. You're right.
The Ra song.
Yeah, cool. I enjoyed that.
Because I was doing Radio 13 at the time, and I did the whole lot. And so, you know, there's sort of been some mystical connections there.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, that's quite nice, a songwriter to, you know, they gave, I don't know, there's about 20 artists they gave a couple of grand to.
Yeah.
To do that. So it was pretty cool.
And there was some beautiful music came out of that. I mean, all I did was faithfully reproduce them so that.
It was nice. I heard a few of them. I didn't listen to them all, but I listened to a bunch of them, and they're pretty different, pretty diverse.
I didn't do any commentary or review, so you know, I'm pretty certain I didn't offend you in any way.
That's all good. That was just a fun piece of music, you know. Do what they want with it. Yeah.
But look,
excuse me.
You're a man of considerable pedigree, but not so big a profile.
No. People discover my music when I'm dead. You know, I'm one of those kind of artists. You know, I'm too left to centre, man. I've never. It's too left. It's always been too left. It's like cool and great, but not commercial. It never has been. You know, I think you know that. I think you know. I don't know. It's a funny one because I think my music has a sense of pop sensibility and it has everything in it, but. You know, most people are generally not up with the play. You know, it's always like I always feel like I'm pushing boundaries a bit, and so it's never been easy listening all the way for people. And I get it, I understand. You know, it'll take a while before people can assimilate. You know, what someone like me does. You know, and there's so much music out there today. So, you know, how are you going to discover weird and interesting people anyway? You know, it's like it's always going to be a minority. It's just the way it is. I accepted that a long time ago.
But that's true. But you're as I said, you're very prolific, and you've immersed yourself in other projects. So tell us a little about that. I don't want to go through. I'd like to hear a little bit about your other projects from you, if I may.
Yeah, well, it's I've always enjoyed collaborating with friends, and that's pretty much what it's about. It comes down to that, and music's everything to me, and friends and family are close, and so you know I can't help wanting to make music with friends and just what we've done. So therefore I've always had a bunch of projects on the go. You know, I've got my main bands, Loud Ghost and New Telepathics, and recently it's become King Ketchup as well,
right,
which was a fun project, and you know now it's become probably the most gigging of my 3 acts at the moment. But, you know, Andrew Fagan, for example, you know, he's just a close friend, and he wanted me to play keys 10, 12 years ago on a gig. So, you know, I ended up playing guitar with him, and from scratch, Phil Dadson, I met him in the 90s. So we're just close friends, and we just make music. Haley Picasso is the same idea, another project I'm with. You know, the guys, I was friends with them 30 years ago with my old band Braintree. We used to do shows together, and it's only being friends that they like, hey, they were trying to convince me for years to join them. And eventually did, you know, 12, 15 years ago, whenever it was, 12 years ago. But yeah, so it's all friends, connections. That's the only, if there was no friends, I'd be only doing my own music.
Tell us a little bit about London.
London. Well, I was there for 10 years. I guess it was 10 years. It was a pretty good burst. I mean, I where do you start with something like that? Holy shit! Well,
when was that?
Well, I first went to London in 1998. I was touring with Europe with From Scratch, and we didn't play in London, but we had 3 months off between shows at one point. And so I went to London, and for those 3 months, I only knew one or two people. And within 10 days, it was kind of funny. I mean, I met these people at a party. One guy called Ben Smith, and him and we had an acquaintance, and it was just classic coincidence. Got on really well. Cut a long story short, we hung out later in the week at what was that woman's name? It was Nadi. She played cello. Heather Nova. Do you remember Heather Nova?
Yes, yes.
She was a singer-songwriter woman.
I got
Probably
an
about
album
20
of hers.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. And so I knew her cello player, and at this party I met Ben, and it turned out the cello player Nadi had played on his album, this band called Stony Sleep. And I was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. So the following week we went to the gig. This is my first week in London, and I went and saw Heather Nova play. And Ben and we just hooked up. I crashed the night in his lounge, and the next morning he's like, oh, you got to meet my band, Stony Sleep. His brother was the drummer and the bass player. So the next morning I find myself going up to the Angel Tube Station, meeting these two young guys. They were like only 17, and I was in my mid-20s. I was 26, I think, at the time. And man, we became real close. That day I jammed with them, and at the end of the jam, we're jamming out, and they're like, Ben came and joined us, oh, on Monday we're doing this John Peel session at the BBC. Do you want to come and play these songs with us? And I was like, what? Yeah, so sure enough, 10 days after being in London, I'm at the fucking Maida Vale studios, the BBC, recording a John Peel session with these really nice friends I just met. So, I hung out, did an album with a friend of mine, Blair Jolins, while I was there in those few months. And Al Hula was his project. And decided that I wanted to go back. So finished the From Scratch tour, went back to New Zealand. I was playing bass with Dead Flowers at the time.
Right.
And we released an album, their third album, their last album, which I worked on with them. And toured that and went back, finished the From Scratch tour, got a work permit, moved to London. And I was there for 10 years. So Ben and I, all those three guys became close. The drummer and the singer were Seraphim, one of the bands I was in. And the bass player was the bass player in New Telepathics there for a while. But he got killed in a car accident, unfortunately. But we're still, funny how. I mean, Seraphim went on to sell about 150,000 albums. It was crazy.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun. We, about 20...
As I said, you're a man of considerable pedigree.
It was interesting. Like there were 20 odd countries we had license deals in, so we were able to tour. And based in London, I squatted this cool place. I was really into the squatting community, and so all these kind of punk characters and really DIY. And here I was playing at Brixton Academy, opening with Muse. I was telling my squatter guys, hey, do you want to come to Brixton Academy? What? It was kind of living in two worlds in a weird way. But tell you what, the squatting was really helped. Didn't have to pay the rent for those 10 years. I had 10 years in the same building. It was stunning. But Seraphim was it was a cool band. I did New Telepathics in London as well, but that was more experimental. And Seraphim was so busy. We toured like 6 months of the year, made 2 albums and a couple of EPs. But I had a New Zealand passport, so at the end of the day, I had to come back to New Zealand. I squeezed it as much as I could, but
I think I had a similar experience in the 80s. I was about a year.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, our bass player from Seraphim, Ben, another Ben, he plays in Iggy Pop these days. Okay. And so a couple of years ago, I hadn't seen Ben, since I moved back to New Zealand, which has been 10 years now, basically. And but we went and saw him in Sydney a couple of years ago, which was really nice. So far out, I think things like that, those kind of connections that you have, and you think, man, if only, love to stay there. But it's called
being rich in experience.
Well, you've got that world, yeah, and then you got living in a Pacific island,
yeah,
where Now
tell me, you play a lot of instruments.
Oh, not a lot, but I mean, I do play bass, drums, guitars, and keys and sax. Yeah. That's about it,
What do you like playing? What do you like playing the most?
My favorite, that's interesting. I would probably say a grand piano would be my most favorite instrument to play. I don't claim to be the greatest pianist, but I love to sit down at a grand piano and just like tutu away. I love that. The dynamics of that. But, man, drums. I mean, how cool. Drums, guitars, bass, you know, singing, songwriting, whatever, it's all relative, isn't it? You know, they all go in hand.
And
Should I
now,
chop off my little finger or should I chop off my thumb? Oh, fuck, I don't know, you know.
your nose, despite your face.
Oh, jeepers. Okay, the nose can go.
That's what I tell my dog every day when he gets into trouble.
All right. Oh, cool. What's your dog?
My dog is called Rebel. My dog is a cavoodle, and his name is Rebel Bowie.
Rebel Bowie. My sister's got one of those dogs in Australia. He's called Austin.
Right.
They're beautiful little dogs, cute little guys, quite intelligent. I thought they were a bit silly, but they're not. They're quite clever.
They're very clever. They're very clever.
Mm. Mm.
And now, wait for it. Drum roll.
Music. Back to the music.
There's a new album out, and it's in your own name.
Yeah, I haven't really put out things in my own name much, well, at all, really.
That's why this is a momentous occasion.
I've always used band names like New Telepathics or Loud Ghost. I like the band names things. But yeah, it's worth it because there's a lot of recordings. And I'm going to put another one out, another 10 tracks in a couple of weeks as well. And then another one a few weeks after that because there's so many tracks around. And so this is a compilation called, what do I call it?
Rare Grooves
and Tone Research Volume 1.
That's a question. That's a question in and of itself.
So what is a rare groove and what is tone research? Well, a rare groove is anything I put it or I have recorded because no one's heard it, so it's really fucking rare and they're groovy. And tone research is anything I want it to be, so I can put any track I want on. Really, it can be anything you like. And so, but I have made a sort of coherence to the recordings over the 3 volumes. To be honest, all 3 volumes are ready to go, but it'd be silly for me to put out 30 songs in one go. I'll just, you know, that would be stupid. Be like Prince doing what he did in the 90s and stuff, didn't he? Emancipation, remember that? Triple CD. It's great. Yeah, it's too much. So over the 3 compilations, the recordings that are never released, and I'm always recording. I'm always just doing stuff, and a lot of those tracks don't get released. Some of them become songs for bands. Some of them become New Telepathics tracks. Some of them, you know, they all have their own thing, but there are literally quite a few hundred tracks that just sitting there that have never seen the light of day. So I figured I'll just choose some cool ones and put them out, and they kind of work together. They're generally groove based, hence the, you know, rare groove concept. And the tone research is just because that's my studio is called Tone Exchange, and I've always had a thing called the Institute of Telepathic Research, which is a silly name where I represented my stuff with, you know. So it's a play upon words of my own art, and so people who know me will know where I'm coming from, and it'll make sense to them. And if you like the music, you know, you don't really need to know anything about me as well. I think it's accessible enough for people to enjoy. Yeah, I guess.
But it's nice to see you come. It's nice to see you coming forward.
Well, it's cool. I mean, the recordings are neat. I mean, the volume 1 is kind of relatively the last couple of years. There's some tracks recorded, but over the next 2 volumes, it's going to be tracks that go back 20 years, recorded in Brixton and in Germany. I lived in Germany for 2 years. The last 2 years of living in Europe, I was going back between Germany and London every few months.
Whereabouts? Berlin?
I lived in Weimar.
Okay.
It's where Weimar Republic, it's where the Bauhaus is.
Yes.
Still, they reopened the Bauhaus art school. And my girlfriend at the time went to the Bauhaus, and they have, with Goethe and Schiller, their writers came from Weimar. Yeah. And it was amazing, man. I miss that place. We lived in I rented a room. It was only 50 euros a month with 2 rooms. It was insane. And it was an old fire station. And so I had a bit of a recording set up out there, very lo-fi. And the funny thing about Weimar and the East Germany there were no really awesome bands. There were like jazz musicians and classical orchestra stuff. And it was like a singer-songwriter kind of folky stuff, but there was nothing like, you know, it's like, wow.
That was from the degenerate West.
Yeah, I guess so. So anyway, what was cool though is I just met some really cool people in Germany, and these great musicians from different things, and I pulled together these dub guys and these jazz guys, and did a lot of New Telepathics in Germany. Would just sell out all the places, and you know, people in the streets. I miss that. And also the art world, man. art galleries. You know, I'd have
Look,
installations.
I can really, no, I can really see how the Germans would
People
like.
appreciated what I did.
They do, yeah.
That's it. You know, I'd have you know, gallery and show stuff all the time, and it was different. You know, people appreciated it.
So look, there's a lot of, there's obviously, it's very percussion and rhythm driven. It's got its avant-garde nuances. And every now and then you're jumping into a Talking Heads rhythm, and then of course the other person I'm hearing when I lean towards the new telepathic stuff is Fela Kuti from Nigeria.
Right. Thanks, Roger. I can tell that you've listened to the music just from your words there, even if they're not words I would use, which is kind of cool. I love that. But yes, Fela Kuti was huge to me all through my life. Massive, massive. I had an uncle of mine, Ross Harkness. He died about 18 months ago, only 61. It's terrible. But he was big influence on me as a kid. Like, I'm going back to the early 80s, where when I was 10, 11, and I was starting to play drums and piano, teach myself guitar. He introduced me to Sun Ra, Ornette Coleman, Lee Scratch Perry, Burning Spear, Captain Beefheart, you know, Fela Kuti, you know, proper music.
Cool.
Whole punk, reggae, intense, wild shit. The Who, Split Ends, you know, the Cramps. You know, he was the master of stuff, this guy, my uncle. And so Fela Kuti was a huge part of that, obviously. I ended up having some funny connections when I went to London there.
Yeah.
There were two incidences which were quite neat, really. Where I lived in this place in Brixton, we had a courtyard, and we'd do these parties in the courtyard, street parties, basically. And New Telepathics would play. And one time, this guy, there's, you know, 100 people in our courtyard, 200 people. It's quite fun. This guy comes up to me. He's got a guitar and a little amp, and we're playing. And he says, "Hey, man, can I sit in?" This African guy, and I'm like, "Shit, yeah, bro, just sit up." And so he plays, and man, he was playing some mean guitar. The next day, I found out he was the guitar player in Fela Kuti's band. Anyway, there was
I'm trying to find my Fela Kuti album, and I can't find it.
Oh, that's all right. I've got heaps. I love Fela's music. So one time, I did the song "Remember Fela." It's a New Telepathic song. It's on the very first New Telepathics record. It's called "Remember Fela." It's a protest song, and I made a video for that song. It's a shot of my squat in London. Anyway, I get this email from this guy. "Hey man, Darren, it's Ricky Stein here.
Yeah.
I saw your video. I really want to take you out for lunch." He used to manage, he was best friends with Fela Kuti, and he managed Fela Kuti for 15 years. And so he took me out for lunch when I was in London, and we became quite close friends. We still write to each other, old school letters, which is quite nice.
I spent a good deal of the 80s floating around Africa. So,
oh, wicked.
I've got quite a number of African albums in there, including, and I call him Femi Kuti as well.
Absolutely, I love Femi Kuti stuff. I've got a real one. Black Man Know Yourself. That's a great tune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
man,
well, look, your music is this is great, because your music.
Well, I say percussively too. I mean, realistically, I mean, for me, music is. I'm really into a lot of traditional music, not just African music, but, you know, as a kid, I was into discovering records, vinyl. So I'd go as a kid in the 80s to record stores and just pick up things that interested me. And traditional music has always interested me, like from Thailand, Bali, you know, Indonesia, any Solomon Islands, anything, just kind of all these Pacific places in particular, or Eastern or Asian, but, you know, any kind of traditional music from around the world has always fascinated me, and vinyl's been big to me. So that's where I guess the rhythms.
Yeah.
Well,
people are saying we're going to see a little bit of, or hear a little bit of all of that, and I see you like your chili without peanuts.
A chili without peanuts.
Yeah, I got you there, haven't I? I've been doing my research.
I'm trying. Yeah, no, I do like chili, and I do like peanuts.
Lao Gonma.
Pardon me?
Lao Gonma.
Lao Gunma. Now, that's a funny tune. Okay, so here we go. I just like the word, right? Lao Gunma. Otis Frizzell and Mike Western.
Do you know what it means? Do you know what it
Yeah,
means?
I do know what it means.
Yeah.
I mean, you're thinking of the chili sauce, right?
Yeah.
Chili sauce. It actually, well, Lao Gunma means old grandma.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, when I saw this little jar of Lao Gunma down at Mike and Otis's studio one day, I hang out with them, work with those guys. I was like, Lao Gunma, Lao Gunma. What a beautiful rhythm that is, Lao Gunma. It's like Lao Gunma. You can make a lot of music with just that.
No,
And it was funny. So that's where that came from. And so I went and recorded it, but that before even bloody knowing what Lao Gunma meant. Then I looked it up. Oh, old grandma, go right to the sun.
they got into trouble because they had peanuts in their oil and they didn't display it.
Fuck, I didn't know that.
And
That's
so that would have caused quite some strife amongst certain.
Holy shit! What if people died from it?
Oh, exactly. Well, I mean, it may well have happened. May well have happened.
Oh dear.
And tell me about your brother. How bad was he?
My uncle.
Your brother.
Oh, my ballad of a bad brother. Right. See, now you're talking about my music, which is great. I don't have a brother, but I have lots of brothers.
I suspected as much.
That's not about anyone in particular.
You got a few bros.
That's a totally improvised piece. The bass and drums, everything. That's just I started that recording. I did the drums first, just in my head. Didn't know what was going to happen. Then over the loop, there was a loop. I think it was a loop first. He was right. There's a loop, a funny little loop, which I made from this little guitar pedal thing, whatever, through my keyboard, and then just drummed over it, and then just improvised those lyrics straight off. I was happy with that. Yeah. Now we do that in Loud Ghost, that song, but that version's quite cool.
Okay.
So maybe I'll record it with the Loud Ghost version one day, which is really awesome.
So tell me what happens next. I know you told me that you thought. I mean, obviously, COVID permitting, Loud Ghosts were going to be touring. But are you going to do a solo tour? What do you reckon with all his music?
Solo tour, I reckon it's worth thinking about. Actually, I have thought about it over the last 18 months in particular. I have thought about doing a solo tour. It's something I hadn't thought about previously until 18 months ago. So yeah, maybe. It actually makes a lot of sense. I have toured on my own before. I rescored Nosferatu, the Dracula movie, 1922, F.W. Murnau classic. I rescored that in 2007, and I did a 16-date tour through the UK cinemas, which was quite cool. Wow. Van. I put my mattress in the back of the van to keep the cost down, and all I needed was my guitar. I bow it with a cello bow, electric keyboard, piano. And so it sounds traditional, piano and strings, but, it's a bit weird because I'm looping shit and playing, the bow and stuff. It was a really neat tour, and the DVD, real easy on your own. Kind of cool. So maybe, man. But I was thinking, does that mean I could bring a band as well, though? Who knows? We'll see. I think it's worth maybe doing a Darryn Harkness tour, because then I could probably bring in different music as well from the different bands and the different projects, and just make it a bit more variety based than just those projects, which is cool too.
Look, we have to wrap this up now. But look, to me, I mean, I didn't know who you were before a few weeks ago, and I've enjoyed the experience of finding out where you've come from. And I think talking with you now, it's opened up a whole new world for a whole lot of people. So I hope people get to watch this.
No! Are you filming it? I see what you're saying. So you can put this out. That's cool. I'm very happy about that. I didn't know you were going to put the video out, but I thought you were going to take words from it. But I'm very happy about that. That's totally fine.
No, we're gonna put it up, and
okay, cool,
on the website. So yeah, look,
all right,
I'm gonna wrap it up.
I appreciate your I do appreciate you taking the time to listen to the music. That's means a lot in today's world. You know what it's like being an artist. Actual serious artist, it's like fucking today's world it's just crazy. So I do appreciate that. And
it's hard,
if there are people out there who enjoy the music, thanks.
Yeah.
Cheers,
okay.
Roger. We'll be in touch.
Cheers, Darryn. Thank you.
Cheers.